Okay, so we are going to continue our coverage over Superman, the Men of Tomorrow. This was an 8-part storyline that was done in the middle of the New 52, and it was written by Jeff Johns. Now, of course, this was not Jeff Johns' first story when it comes to writing Superman, but it was his first story for Superman in the New 52 era. Now, with that being said, when it comes to the Men of Tomorrow, it's all about the idea that Superman met a new character known as Ulysses, who comes from Dimension 4, but he is very similar to Superman in a way. What I mean by that is 25 years ago, Ulysses was sent away from Earth into another dimension by his parents. Now remember, when it came to Ulysses' parents, they were scientists, and like other scientists across the world who were all working for different military groups around the world, they all got tired of making different kinds of weapons of mass destruction. And so they all came together and basically went over to a research center known as Ulysses Research Center, where they were trying to find a dimension to be their new home, hopefully a better place than Earth. The problem was, though, they opened up a portal to Dimension 2, and when they did that, some kind of energy source was basically killing off the different scientists in that building. And so to save their son, they sent their son away over to Dimension 4. Now, he was sent away, but he came back 25 years later. And when he came back 25 years later, he realized the Earth is a horrible place because he believed that he was the sole survivor. And when he found out the Earth was still alive, he felt happy, excited about the idea that he now has a chance to learn more about his home world. But unfortunately, as he traveled across the world, he realized that war is a huge problem across the board, but there are also other problems as well. And so after realizing the Earth is not a great place, he made an offer to the entire world. He says, listen, if you are tired of living on this horrible planet, come with me to my adoptive world, Dimension 4. Now remember, in Dimension 4, there was just peace all over the entire dimension. There was no war. They had some trouble, but that trouble only came every once in a while. But Ulysses was able to deal with those problems as soon as they popped up. And so he's saying, if you guys are tired of being here, come with me. I'll take you back to a better place, a better world, Dimension 4. And that was where we left off at the end of the last chapter. And so you have Superman go and confront Ulysses. Now, when he does, he asks Ulysses, what are you doing, dude? Because here you are trying to take away not thousands, but more of like millions or billions of people away from the Earth. You can't do that. Now for Ulysses, it's more of like, dude, I'm not taking anyone away from the Earth. I gave them an offering. It was literally their choice. They have the right to decide what they want to do. They can stay here and be on this horrible planet or go to a world where there is peace across the world. Now for Superman, it's more about the idea of like, listen, you and I have the ability to install hope into this world, to have people believe in us, but to also believe in the idea that sooner or later a better world is gonna come. Now, this is not Clark saying that he believes in that a perfect world is going to come. It's him saying that their goal is to build a better world, because no matter what, there is never going to be a perfect world, because nobody can ever be perfect across the board. And so it's Clark saying what you're doing right now is basically saying that you give up on Earth right off the bat. Now for Ulysses, it's more of like, well, yeah, I was gone for 25 years. Clark, 25 years have passed by and the Earth has not improved that much. It's still a complete failure 25 years later. But you have Clark say, but some parts did improve. That's the thing. The earth is constantly going to change. And the thing is, we have to use our powers to make sure those changes are actually good, but not bad. But the thing is, Ulysses does not care. It's all about the idea that this earth is technically a failure. And the thing is, this guy comes from Dimension 4. He spent 25 years there. In that dimension, it was a perfect world, a perfect society. And with this offering being out there, of course, you have the public of all these different areas across the world just running to the locations that Ulysses says, go to if you want to come with me over to Dimension 4. Now, Lois Lane and Jimmy, they're going to one of the locations to get a better look at devices that Ulysses is using. But his parents, they're also down with the idea of leaving the Earth to go with their son over to Dimension 4. And matter of fact, that was their goal. They were looking for a better world than Earth. They hated the idea of building weapons of mass destruction. And so they tell Superman what their son is doing is technically not wrong, that in reality, he's bringing hope into the world. That was our goal 25 years ago. And here's our son being able to take our goal and actually accomplish that goal. But then we get our chance to look at the public. How will the public react? How will they act with the idea of this offering being out there? And you have all these different people just running to different locations that Ulysses says to go to if you want to come with him over to Dimension 4. And so with that offering, you have folks fighting their way to be next in line to go to a perfect world that has peace across the board, that no matter what, you won't be homeless, you won't starve to death, there's no war at all. And so you have folks just pushing and shoving. But here's the thing though, because it's Ulysses causing another problem across the world, because when it comes to the human race, the hunger for war is always going to be there. And so now you have folks fighting against each other over the idea to just be next in line for a possibility to have a better life. But the thing is, he's not there watching that. But then you have Ulysses pay a visit over to Cleric. Now remember, Cleric was technically Ulysses' main and only bad guy. Well, not his only bad guy, but his main bad guy over in Dimension 4. Either way, when it came to our two characters coming over to the Earth dimension, Superman and Ulysses worked together to take him down. And he was locked up on Stryker Island. And so this is Ulysses paying a visit over to Cleric to ask him a question or to just talk to him about something. Unfortunately, we have no idea what they had discussed because they're speaking in another language, the language of Dimension 4. But apparently, as soon as the conversation ended, Ulysses seemed very angry about what they had talked about. But then you have Ulysses head over to his parents' house, his biological parents. And of course, they're very happy to see their son, but also kind of like, all right, man, we are ready to go over to Dimension 4. When do we leave? And you have Ulysses tell his parents, you guys can't go. And it's kind of like, wait, what do you mean? Why in the world can we not go? But the thing is, he does not really answer their question very well. The only thing he says is that I did not know you were still alive. They did not tell me you were still alive. I'm trying to protect you. And that line right there is very concerning to the point where you have Superman walk into the room. And he's kind of like, Ulysses, what in the world is going on? What are you not telling us? But what are you not telling your parents especially? And right off the bat, you have Ulysses attack Superman. Now, here's the thing, because you have Ulysses begin to say different things that kind of hint that he's not technically a good guy that we were left to believe he was. But on top of that, he does say different things in a way that there never was a perfect world that he went to 25 years ago in Dimension 4. And the reason why I'm saying that, because you have the man beating down on Superman. And he says, this is not my first time doing this. And that right there should be the first red flag. But wait, there's more, because then you have Ulysses continue to beat down on Superman. And when he does, he tells Clark this right here: you are wrong. A perfect world can happen, except it cannot happen overnight. It comes with a cost. And unfortunately, to make sure the Earth can have the chance to be that perfect world, I'm going to have to make sure it does pay the cost to achieve that goal. And so to achieve that goal, to pay for that cost, it has to be your life, Superman. And so you have Ulysses continue to beat down on Clark to the point where we're led to believe that Clark Kent is actually dead. And so as we dive into the 5th chapter, we do pick up with Superman waking up after being beat down by, of course, Ulysses. And of course, when he does wake up, he realizes that he's unable to break out of the machine that he is currently trapped inside of. And we kind of find out the machine is basically releasing a similar energy to kryptonite. And so even though it's not kryptonite, it has the same effects as kryptonite as a way to weaken Superman, to hurt Superman, so that he will not be able to break free. But that is the moment where you have Cleric walk in. Now, when Cleric walks in, this is a huge moment. And the reason why? Because it's Superman realizing that he has been played. Because Cleric is the adoptive father of Ulysses. Because remember, 25 years ago, he was sent over to Dimension 4, and he told us in our last video that he had great parents and his father was a doctor and everything was beautiful over in Dimension 4. But his adoptive father is Cleric, and he told us that Cleric was his main bad guy in Dimension 4, and that was not the truth. And so now you have Clark realize, oh my God, I've been played. Because now Clark realizing, wait a second, when you first arrived alongside with Cleric and you helped me fight against him, that was a trick. You basically used that moment right there as a way to breaking our defense down, to build a trust between us and you, so that the rest of the people of Earth can start believing in you like they do with me. But in reality, you were not here to actually help us. You were here to weaken us to the point where we'll go do anything you want us to do. And so when it comes to the thousands or millions of people who had agreed to go with Ulysses over to Dimension 4, it was all part of his plan for something bigger. But we're not told what that big plan truly is. And matter of fact, it seems like these 6 million people are going to die for some kind of crazy plan of Ulysses. And so you have Ulysses say, listen, y'all be okay, because the Earth has 6 billion people. The Earth will be okay without 6 million people. But on top of that, I have to do this as a way to save Dimension 4. But even though I'm from this planet, I realize that this world is a failure. And so what's the point with me going ahead and using 6 million people to achieve a certain goal? But you did have Ulysses go ahead and say, it's time for us to all go over to Dimension 4. Now, when they do arrive over to Dimension 4, this is where we learn everything that's going on when it comes to Ulysses and his master plan alongside with Cleric. Because yes, this world is perfect, but here's the catch though. It has a core that has to be completely charged up every few years. And so what happens every few years? You have people from Dimension 4 go over to different planets across different dimensions as a way to collect a bunch of people from different worlds to bring them back here and basically use those people as a way to be energy to charge up the core. And so the 6 million people that had just left Earth to come over here believing they were coming here for a better world, a perfect world, just got tricked. because now they're going to be used as a way to keep the energy going in the core of this world in Dimension 4. And you have Clark realize that this was not Ulysses' first time doing this, that him and Cleric have done this many times before, except now it's Earth, and Earth is the home world to Ulysses. And Clark can't believe that he would do this to his own race of people. Now, you didn't have Clark realize the parents of Ulysses is on the ship that brought all those 6 million people over to Dimension 4. And the thing is, that is why Ulysses did not want his parents to go in the first place, because he knew they were going to be used as a way to keep the core of this world alive. They would have died. But with Clark using his X-ray vision, he's all like, dude, your parents snuck on. They're on this ship, and sooner or later, they're going to be converted into energy for this core, for this entire world. And so this is Clark saying, we have to basically save your parents, but we also have to save the 6 million people that you took away from Earth, but also save the people of this world here in Dimension 4 as well. Because if what Ulysses is saying is true about the idea that this world is only alive because of its core, meaning that the core could die sooner or later, and if the core does die, that means this world dies with it, then we have to go ahead and get these folks off this world as well, to find them a new home, or to find a way to fix the core so that it will not die off, killing off everybody on this planet. So you have Clark say, why not go ahead and use the same ship that brought all of us here to take all of us home, but also the people of this world home with us as well. And so you have our two heroes work together. Now, when they do work together, their main goal is to, at first, get the people of Earth back onto Earth, including Ulysses' parents. And so you have Ulysses and Superman begin the idea of using the transporters to basically get recharged to send those folks back home first. And once they're able to do that, then their next goal is to get the people of the great world from the Dimension 4 onto this ship, and then once again use the transporters to get those folks over to Earth next. But the thing is, while you have our two heroes trying to pull off the second part of their plan, they get stopped by Cleric. But here comes the big problem though, because Cleric does attack both Superman and Ulysses, which of course throw our two heroes off. But you have Cleric say the ship is now technically offline. And with that happening, the ship is going to fall into the core. Now, if that happens, it is going to permanently damage the core to the point where the core could basically explode. And so you have Clark grab Ulysses, and you have our two heroes fly into space before the core can blow up. But when it does blow up, it destroys the entire planet of Dimension 4. Now, luckily for our heroes, they were able to get the people of Earth back onto Earth. But the people of the Great Fourth World, or the Great World, is now gone completely. They had died when that planet had exploded. And for Ulysses, he's very upset about the idea, because now his adoptive world is gone. And technically for him, this was his home. He was raised here with those people, but now it's gone, completely wiped out. The entire world, the entire race is all gone. Now he blames Superman for this, but at the same time, it's kind of like, you can't do that. But for Ulysses, no, it is Clark's fault that this world is gone. If Clark did not say anything at all and let Ulysses and Cleric use the 6 million people of Earth to charge at the core, this world right here would still be alive. But now you have Ulysses once again beating down on Clark Kent. And so as we jump into the next chapter, we actually do pick up with Ulysses beating down on Superman. Now, here's the thing though, because it's technically Ulysses saying it's your fault, and somewhat it is Superman's fault, because remember, Superman said, why in the world are you going to sacrifice 6 million people, but not try to save both lives, the people of the great world, but also the people of Earth as well. And so it was Superman who did change the mind of Ulysses to kind of work with Superman to save both races. But at the same time, it didn't work out, and so the great world was destroyed. Now, yes, the people of Earth were able to get back to Earth, but the thing is though, other people died because of Clark not going with Ulysses' plan. Now, this is not me saying like, oh yeah, Ulysses is right. What I'm saying is, technically it is Superman's fault. But in reality, it's Clark saying you were going to sacrifice 6 million people to save this world right here. That is not okay. So both characters are really in the wrong here. But either way, you have Ulysses just beating down on Superman. But real quickly, we have to jump back over to the people of Earth, because at first they were on the great world. They were on this perfect world, to only come back to Earth, a world that is clearly not perfect, but on top of that has a lot of issues. And so with that being said, they're kind of like, we were promised a world where my daughter, who's very sick, might have the chance to survive. Or, the idea of no longer being homeless, or the idea of having enough money to pay for food. Those different kinds of struggles were promised to them to no longer be around, but unfortunately, they're now back on Earth, and those problems are right back at them again. But getting back over to the battle between Superman and also, Ulysses, their battle goes all over the place. They do arrive back on Earth, and once they do, you have the people of Earth wondering what the heck happened between Superman and Ulysses. But you have Clark kind of give a speech in a way where it's kind of like, listen guys, I know you were promised to go to a world, a great world, a perfect world, but unfortunately that will not happen. But the thing is, as long as you have hope in this world right here, things can change. And then Homeboy goes right back to fighting Ulysses just like that. And so while you have our two characters fighting against each other, this is the moment where you have Superman do a solar flare. Now, this was the first time he was actually able to achieve this new power, because remember, when it comes to Ulysses, he has the ability to manipulate energy. And so when you have Clark trying to use heat vision on Ulysses, technically it does not work in the way Clark was hoping it would work. But then Clark just keeps pushing and pushing his heat vision out. And while doing that, out of nowhere, his body begins to react in a new kind of way, with him trying to push beyond his actual limits, to the point where he releases a huge amount of energy, a solar flare energy. A huge explosion is done, and we're left to wonder what happened to Ulysses, because Homeboy got hit hard by this new power, but Clark is completely drained. Out of nowhere, someone grabs him and takes him somewhere else. And we kind of find out that he was saved by Batman. Now, once you have Batman being able to get Clark and take him back over to the Batcave, this is where we get all the information about the actual solar flare, this new power that Superman has unlocked. And this was a very important thing that led us into the actual truth arc when it came to Superman, because the solar flare plays a huge role in the idea of Superman losing his abilities in that arc after this one here. Either way, you have Batman say that what happened was Superman released a huge amount of energy, except while doing that, his cells are completely drained. And so without having any kind of solar energy in those cells, Superman is technically, human. And that is it. And so unfortunately, he cannot just fly or use his powers until his cells are completely recharged. Now, when it comes to Ulysses, he was found, but he was locked up in a special kind of cell that continues to drain his energy so that he is not able to break out of there anytime soon. But then you have Clark go over to, well, Ulysses' prison cell to try to talk to Ulysses. Unfortunately, though, when it comes to Ulysses, he does not want to talk to Clark at all. Because to him, it's Clark's fault any idea the great world is gone. It's his fault that his adoptive parents, his friends on that other world are all gone right now. It's his fault that he is locked up currently and unable to use his powers. And so he tells Superman, I do not want to talk to you at all. Please get the heck out of here. And Clark has no choice but to go ahead and walk away. But then you have Ulysses' parents appear. Now, when they do appear, they're trying to tell Ulysses, listen, Superman talked to us, but no matter what, we still love you. No matter what, you are still our son. No matter what, we know there's more to the story. And so this is kind of like putting Ulysses on the back burner for the time being. But then this leads into another big moment, because even though Ulysses is locked up, we're still not technically done with his story written by Jeff Johns, because right after that, you have Clark go pay a visit to Jimmy, and he realized that no matter what, Jimmy Olsen is the one person he can trust, like I said, no matter what, because Jimmy is such a great guy. He's always been in Clark's corner, but also Superman's corner. And so you have Clark say, Jimmy, I have a secret to tell you. I am Superman. And this is a huge moment for Clark and Jimmy in the new 52. But the last page of the third chapter really does focuses on Mr. Oz, where we kind of find out that he is still watching Clark Kent. But like I said earlier, we already know that Mr. Oz is, of course, well, Jor-El, the father, the biological father of Superman. But either way, we see him getting ready to send a package over to Clark Kent. But when we jump into the fourth chapter, well, we kind of find out that somebody is delivering the package for Mr. Oz to hopefully get over to Clark Kent. Now, for Jimmy, he's very excited about the idea of learning that his best friend, Clark Kent, is Superman. But here comes the problem, though, because with Superman being able to do the solar flare, he is technically powerless until his cells are recharged by the yellow sun. And so, unfortunately, he has no powers to show Jimmy to prove that he actually is Superman. And so for Jimmy, it's more of, you're not Superman. You're faking it. You're lying to me. There's no way that you have powers. There's no way that you are the Man of Steel. You are basically lying to me right now. But you have Clark say, listen, let me go ahead and explain to you why I can't show you my powers right now. But on top of that, why my armor looks different. Because his Superman suit does look a tad bit different. Only because when he did the solar flare, he technically did destroy his last Kryptonian outfit. But really, this chapter is really going to be more of Clark Kent trying to explain to Jimmy how he's no longer the Man of Steel just for one day. That technically he is a human, but again, thanks to the solar flare. And so you have Clark really being hit hard when it comes to the idea of being a regular human. For example, right now in Metropolis, it's very cold. And so for Clark, he was never cold no matter what. But because he's technically powerless, Homeboy's kind of like, yo, it's a little chilly right now. And matter of fact, when it comes to Clark, he realized a young boy had climbed up a tree to get his kite. But unfortunately, the boy might fall out of the tree. And really, the boy does fall out of the tree, where you have Clark going out of his way to save the young boy. Now, Clark is able to do that, except he does scrape his arm and begin to bleed. And so because of that, it really shows that he lost his durability. Thanks to the solar flare taking all of his solar energy away, Clark Kent is literally just a regular human. Now you do have Jimmy and also Clark head over to the Daily Planet. Now when they do arrive at the Daily Planet, it's really more Clark being brought back into the actual place. Because remember, in the earlier parts of the New 52, Clark left the Daily Planet because of Morgan Edge, the actual owner of the company. But of course, Perry White, the editor-in-chief, said, nah, man, I need you to come back over to the Daily Planet. You were a great reporter for us. And so you have Clark being brought back in after writing that big piece on Ulysses. Now, he does get a paper cut. Another example that Clark Kent is now just a regular person until he is fully recharged with solar energy. Except that is the moment where you have somebody run into the office or the meeting room to tell everyone that there are a bunch of gunmen right now in Metropolis causing a lot of problems with police. And so, of course, you have Lois and Clark and Jimmy all rush down. But here's the thing. Clark is going down there and trying to be Superman to stop the actual gunmen from hurting innocent people. But the thing is, he's currently just a regular person. He did lose his powers. And so if he does get shot, there's a possibility that he could actually die. And so you do have Superman go down and try to be that hero. Now, of course, he realized that if he gets shot, he's basically dead. But when he does go in there, he tries to actually talk to the gunman like, hey, man, listen, you haven't hurt anybody yet. Why do you have a gun out for? Why are you trying to shoot people for? Like, hey, man, listen. Put the gun down. You still have a chance to make a better life choice here. You still have a chance to live your life. Now, this is Clark just trying his best to talk the guy out of making a huge mistake. But the thing is, Clark is actually able to do that because people of Metropolis trust Superman. This guy with a gun right here is not your usual thug, your usual bad guy. This was somebody who went through some struggles, most likely was also involved in the Ulysses event as well, and right now currently hitting some hard times. So having Superman being there and being able to calm him down, to talk him out of the idea of killing somebody was a great moment. And so you have the gunman actually give up, hand the gun over to Clark, and everything is a-okay. Now, once you have Superman and Jimmy walk away from the scene, well, that is the moment you have Clark be able to fly once again. And of course, that tells Jimmy that what Clark said earlier is the truth, that Clark Kent is Superman. Now, the last page of this book is really more of Clark Kent and Jimmy Olsen going back over to the Daily Planet, and you have Clark get a package. Of course, it is the same package that Mr. Oz had technically sent over to Clark. And we come to find out it is a notebook. But this notebook is blank, completely blank. And for Mr. Oz, it's about the idea that the future is unwritten, meaning that Clark still has the ability to change his future. And this is the end for today's video. This wraps up the Superman the Men of Tomorrow storyline, which honestly, I kind of like it, but at the same time, it's not one of my favorite Superman stories of all time, but it's still a great story to read. So with that being said, guys, please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.